Hey, what's going on, guys? It's TrekYT here, Nick, back with another brand new Minecraft video. Guys, today I thought it would be really funny to try to build something with the more ugly blocks that are in Minecraft. So one thing you really don't see very much of is builders trying to build with the, I guess, ugly blocks in Minecraft. There are a set of blocks in Minecraft that I would consider to be not blocks that I would ever use, because they don't really mix well with the other blocks that are currently in the game. So I have challenged myself to make a nice looking build using what I would consider to be some ugly blocks from Minecraft, with including one safety block. Basically a block that I would consider to be a good looking block in all of its counterparts, allowing myself to, give myself that slight little bit of an edge to be able to build a nice looking build. And then I want to mix in all of these other blocks into the build to try to make a nice looking build out of what I would consider to be the ugliest blocks in Minecraft. So what I started myself out by doing is changing the already pre-existing color palette of all the blocks in the terrain to something a little bit different. I just want to mix in some stones in the ground using my safety block stone and its counterpart cobblestone, as well as I tried to mix in our first, I guess, ugly block of this build, and that would be granite. I don't really find it to be a very attractive block. They have since changed the texture in the new updates, but I still feel like it's one of those blocks that it has to be paired up with a very certain amount of blocks or certain kind of blocks to make it look like a cool looking palette. It's a very hard block to fit into things. When you have woods and stuff, it's very easy to just put those with other woods, where granite is a very pastel type block that doesn't mix well with other things. So next we are going to go ahead and try to build more or less a castle style build on top of this island mountain, I guess you would consider. So we're going to go ahead and build a nice castle wall, very organic, very just not symmetrical at all, using another one of these ugly blocks. Now this is nether wart brick, or red nether brick. It's made up, I think, of the nether wart block that they added in the newer updates. Now I don't really play that much of the new 1.14 and 1.13 and stuff like that, but they have added new blocks, and some of them not the best looking blocks in the game, and that would be the red nether brick in my opinion. I just don't really find it to be a block that I can really mix easily with other things. It's a very, very intense texture. Now, it be coming Halloween here soon. Maybe you can mix that into some Halloween builds, because it's a very nice, dark, deep red. But as far as all the other blocks, just looking at this build right now, you can see it does not mesh well with the green grass at all. It's just two totally different colors and totally different shades. It doesn't work that well. But what I attempted to do was build a very organic wall, and then I mixed in the nether wart block, which again, another block that I don't really find to be all that attractive. A very weird texture, very intense red color that doesn't mix well. What I consider to be more or less an ugly block in Minecraft is a block that doesn't mix well with others. It could be a very nice looking singular block, like a texture that looks very well, but if it doesn't mash up with other blocks, I'm going to kind of consider it to be an ugly block, because if I can't work it into any single build, I just consider it to be an ugly block, because it's just not a block that I would use all that often. So we finished going ahead and building the wall. It actually came out really nice. It doesn't really mesh that well with the pre-existing palette of all the terrain, but the palette of the wall itself, the two red blocks, they work really well together, I guess, because they are one and the same block, so I guess that does make some sense. Next, we're going to go ahead and start to build up our small little castle, and we're going to go ahead and mix in another one of our ugly blocks. Now, this is the purple block. Now, this has been in the game since, I want to say, 1.12, and it's just a block I've never really found anyone to be able to make it look good. And even in this build, it's okay. Not the most amazing looking block. I really kind of overpowered the actual build itself with my safety block stone, and then kind of mixed in the purple block as more or less an accent block, but I wanted to make it part of the build, so I'm going to go ahead and build a roof now, and that's going to be the block I use for the roof. So that way I'm not totally cheating by using my safety block mainly. I'm still integrating the ugly blocks per se. Now, it looks okay with this, because though it is a very ugly purple, it does work well with grays, because it's a very pastel purple. It's not a very intense, deep purple. We also went ahead and introduced another ugly block, lapis. Now, the lapis block, it's like on the edge of being ugly and not ugly. The blue itself, not that bad, but it really is only meant to be an accent block in my opinion. Like I would never use this to build walls of a castle. Like it's just a block that just has no real texture. It's almost like clay. I just wouldn't use it, but it's like even worse than clay because it has a slight little bit of texture. I don't know. It's a weird block that I really don't find myself using that often unless it's I guess a background block as I used in this. I really put it behind some cobblestone walls so you can barely see it. It's just a slight little, I guess, bit of blue. I mean, I could even switch that block out for blue clay and it would have gave the same effect. So lapis, it's on the edge of being an ugly block, but in my opinion, I don't really use it that much, so I'm going to deem it an ugly block. It's just a block I don't really see being all that great. Now, the castle itself came out okay. I mean, I didn't really go too hard on building the castle. I was really trying to focus on trying to mix in these ugly blocks in the build as best as I can, because though they're all ugly, they don't really work with each other at all. Like the purple and the really intense reds, they don't really mesh until towards the end when I start to mix in some more terraforming. Then they kind of, I guess, come together a little bit more. But right now, they're two very different color palettes. The wall itself around the castle and then the castle itself are like polar opposites of the build. What I think would have done better is if maybe I had swapped out the purple block for maybe the nether wart block or the red nether bricks. That would have looked probably pretty cool because they are like all the same colored blocks. The color palette is all the same, so that would have looked really cool. But I wanted to try to mix in as many ugly blocks as I could, so that's what I went with. Now we're going ahead and we're introducing another ugly block. Now this block has been in the game since pretty much the beginning of Minecraft. I believe it has been in since the beginning of Minecraft, and that is birch logs. It is easily the ugliest block in the game, and honestly, in real life, it's not attractive at all either. I mean, the wood itself on the inside, so like the planks, is a very nice white or very nice yellowy like wood texture, but the outside is very ugly, and that's mainly because it's like a white block with black blobs all over it. It doesn't look that good. It just looks really random. It actually looks very realistic to what an actual birch tree looks like, but a birch tree itself, not an attractive tree at all. So we tried to mix this in as our foliage. Now I don't know how well I did. I mean, I did make some really cool custom trees using a new world edit technique that I kind of discovered on my own, so I may actually make that into a video in the future as a little bit of a side note, is how to make these quick, easy world edited trees in like literally a minute or two. But I guess the texture of the birch didn't do too poorly with the texture that we had already for our terrain with the cobblestone, stone, and granite, and then the grass. It actually kind of meshes very well because they are on the same pastel feel of blocks. And the green of the leaves do work really well with the red nether bricks, and it almost, because I put the leaves and trees kind of in front of the castle, kind of masks the purple block, so it kind of makes it look better because you don't have to see as much of it. That's a very poor way of thinking about it, but mixing these ugly blocks, you almost have to cover them up so that way they're not the focal block, because if you're making them the focal block, it's not gonna do too well, to be honest with you. I mean, there's other ugly blocks in the game that I didn't intermix. Like I actually intermixed bedrock, which really only works as bedrock in the game. Like it's not a very colorful block, and it's not a very interesting texture that I would mix into anything other than maybe a path. And that's exactly what we did in this build. And again, speaking of the build itself, I just went back and I textured everything as much as I possibly could. I wanted to really make the whole scene and the whole build come together, make it feel like the whole island was meant to be that way. And that was just by adding leaves all over the place, make it a little more overgrown, kind of making you look around the entire build instead of looking directly at the ugly block. So like the purple block is my goal here. But I still, again, wanted to make sure that the ugly blocks weren't masked by everything else. So having that roof be the purple block, having the entire wall be the red nether bricks really makes it kind of fit together. I don't know. This build it's okay. I think the build itself was pretty good. The block choice, since we were forcing ourselves to use the ugly blocks, it wasn't the best, but I did what I could. And this is kind of my, I guess, rendition of building with what I would consider to be the ugly blocks in Minecraft. Now this is our finished build, guys. I think it didn't come out too bad, to be honest with you, and we really focused on making the ugly blocks be part of the build. You know, it wasn't that hard and it wasn't that easy at the same time. Like, mixing in the blocks was the easy part, but making them look good together, that was the hard part. Now, if I were to change up this build in any way, obviously that would be probably taking out some of these blocks that I don't really like. I think I just have a hatred for the purple block. I would have probably changed it out, probably for the red nether brick. I think that actually would have looked pretty dang good because it's such a nice brick texture, but in my opinion, it's also kind of an ugly block because it really only works with a couple blocks already in the game. Now, I know I used a lot of stone in this build, so it kind of made it almost like building a structure and then mixing in ugly blocks after the fact. So if you guys want me to try to make another one of these videos by not even using a safety block at all, meaning not using the stone and just strictly using what I would consider ugly blocks in Minecraft, maybe I'll try to mix in some sponge in there or something along those lines. Definitely let me know down below. And the whole point of this video was to kind of show you guys that even though there are blocks in the game that a lot of people don't use that often, you can in some way mix them into a build and make the build actually look not too bad. I mean, if I were to rate this build out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 6 or a 7. I mean, it is mainly comes down to the block choice because, you know, a lot of these blocks I would not normally choose to be in my palette. Now, I think out of all of the blocks in this build that I'm actually surprised don't look that bad, it's the birch. I think the birch actually looks kind of good in this build, so that's the only thing that really surprises me. As far as the blocks that I knew were not going to look good, it's the purple block. I knew that block would not look good, and it's such a weird texture that I'm surprised is the one they included into Minecraft. Now, this is where we're going to bring today's video to wrap. If there's any blocks in Minecraft that you think are, I guess, considered ugly, or that you think you never really use that often in builds, definitely let me know down below, because I want to try to make another one of these by not using a safety block such as stone, just building straight up with all of the ugly blocks in the game. But as always, guys, I love you all. See you guys next time. Peace out.